Welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Matt Bichelle, Director of Product and Corporate Marketing at Enlight Software. It's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Mark Martino. Mark is the Product Manager for Enlight On Demand for Enlight Software. Mark has over 30 years in the IT industry, early on of which he managed hardware planning that led to hardware asset management roles for HP Enterprise Services. Afterwards, he also did portfolio management for HP Enterprise Services and also was a service portfolio manager for DCIM, the cloud consortium of VMware, Cisco, and EMC. So with that, we'll take some questions at the end, and we'll have a poll a little bit into the presentation. But with that, I give it over to Mark. Mark, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Today's topic is we're going to help you justify your purchase of DCIM software. DCIM is not always thought of as a need to have. It's often more of a nice to have, but as we work through this presentation, we're going to show you how DCIM can drive cost savings and also impact and improve your day-to-day operations. Before we dive into the webinar, I do want to talk a little bit about Enlight Software as your host. So Enlight Software has been around. You're going to see some details about how long and some of the things that we've accomplished in a moment, but our focus is helps you manage your entire data center. You can manage, plan, optimize the various components in your data center using the Enlight Software. The centralized database is what drives our product. It provides planning and forecasting tools along with doing your day-to-day activities. We mentioned maximizing your financial benefits. If we're talking about justification, that's going to be a major component that you will see every step of the way throughout this presentation. One thing to note, there are two different platforms for the Enlight Software. We have On Demand. On Demand is a cloud-based service, subscription service that we will show you more details on, and then the standard on-premise. The on-premise is a perpetual license, which you're probably very experienced with. Enlight, a little background and some statistics. On the right, you could see some of the logos of our clients. Some details. Founded in 2004, been around 10 years now. We are profitable. We are well-funded. We are here for the long haul. 160 plus customers, and those customers cover a wide range of size. We go from very large corporations to small and medium-sized businesses, but also we cover different verticals: financial, industrial, retail being some of the major ones. We're over 98% renewal rate. It's also obviously a very positive statement from our existing clients. We can handle large deployments. One deployment has 27,000 racks, while another one has over 100,000 servers deployed in it. Currently, we have over 1 million assets under our software management. Let's dive into justifying DCIM. One of our customers, Senior Director of Data Center Operations, a very large corporation, gave us these quotes during conversation. First one to address. 50 billion company, manage our data center using spreadsheets. That's day-to-day. That's very tactical. That is what a majority of companies, that's how they got into realizing they needed something for data center infrastructure management. Shareware is the #1 tool of choice because it's there. It's something you can use, easy for your existing people to take advantage of. I'm being asked to do more and more strategic planning, not just tactical work. That's everyone's drive. If your focus and tools lead you to the focus on the day-to-day, how do you move from that tactical to a more strategic position? if you want to be among the market leader in IT best practices, we have to use DCIM. So you need world-class tools, not spreadsheets, if you're going to take a large corporation and continue to make it bigger and better. The same applies to any size corporation. If we're just talking SMBs, they have these same quotes can apply to you because you will be facing the same type of issues and concerns. Let's dive down into justifying DCIM. We've got 3 key topics. We're going to talk about cost savings, non-dollarized benefits, and then ability to fund from OpEx. So there's 2 different types of cost savings. We have hard and soft savings. When you think about hard cost savings, you're looking at real dollars. This is what everyone likes to see. It's money saved. Soft savings they benefit, have an impact on you, a little bit harder to track and see. This is more getting into your efficiencies and your ability to plan effectively. If you're more efficient in your day-to-day work, it allows you to become more strategic and larger focused. For example, if you're working on a tech refresh, you have the ability to gather your data, but then also make plans to execute your tech refresh. Non-dollarized benefits. Dollarized, maybe not a word, maybe, but let's explain it. It's how you anticipate issues, you maintain or replace an asset prior to an outage. That's where we're talking about equipment uptime and reducing your risk. If you manage your assets life cycle, you can address upgrades, the need to manage prior to warranty expiration. So you start to mitigate your risks associated with having older servers and storage implemented in your environment. Audits. Audits are always a scary word, especially if you're in a shared environment. A shared environment being, say you're in a colo, maybe you've outsourced your IT department. Audits become more and more frequent in that type of situation. DCIM gives you a centralized database to manage all your assets, to be able to report on it. You get into detailed reporting, and that gives you the ability to address and be ready for any and all audits that come your way. So, last bullet, ability to fund from an OpEx budget. OpEx gives you some flexibility you don't have whenever you're doing your capital expenditure. By taking DCIM to the cloud, this makes it a subscription service. It falls right into the operations expenditure. And the other key component, besides being OpEx, is it reduces your total cost of ownership. You get the full capabilities, but it's in a cloud-based service. We're going to take a second. Matt, I believe you have a poll that you want to.
Absolutely. We'll keep our audience on their toes here. So let me go ahead and launch this poll. Go ahead and answer as you see it. And the question is, how many installs, moves, adds, changes of physical devices, configuration items / assets does your data center group perform each year per data center? So if you have a main data center, use that one. You know, don't necessarily think globally, but you know, for a single, you know, your main data center, is it, you know, 100 or less, 100 to 500, 500 to 2,000, or greater than 2,000? So I'll pause as we're getting in some very good respondency here. And I'm seeing some good responses across all. So I'll go ahead and end the poll now. And let me share that to everyone. So in case you can't see, Mark, what I'm seeing is 18% have 100 or less, 24% have 100 to 500, 47% have 500 to 2,000, so virtually half, and 12% have greater than 2,000.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Okay. That's very good.
All right.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you, and thank you everyone for participating. What that shows, we have a wide range of customers with a wide range of activity in your data center. What we're going to do, that was on an annual basis. We're going to drill down a little into a more granular look at things, become a little more tactical. So how do you reduce the time and cost of doing move adds changes? These 5 questions deal with move add changes on a monthly basis. Whenever you see the numbers we've gathered to kind of match up with these questions, you'll see we've drilled down into very specific numbers, very tightly managed tasks. But things like how does a server from the loading dock to a rack in your data center, how many installs do you do in a month, how many move add changes do you do in a month? Last 2 questions deal more with rework and issues that you may have had. How often do you move servers after they've already been placed? We've all been through that. Next one, how much time is spent reworking your server environment during your maintenance windows? So, based on those 5 questions, what we've done is come up with some numbers. How long does it take a new server from loading dock to rack? Half an hour. It takes transport, racking it, stacking it, getting it installed, cabling it up. Half an hour might be pretty aggressive. Hour might be more realistic, but we wanted to keep these numbers fairly sharp and very fall on the side of underestimating than overestimating. How many installs do you do per month? We say we have 200 racks in the environment, 20% replacement per year. So what we've done is take that number and divide it by 12, and we come up with 30 racks, approximately 30 racks that are getting installs per month. I'm sorry, 30 servers. So how many move add changes do you do in a month? And then how often do you have to move these servers after you've already been placed? We've come up with 30 hours to do all of that. Then how much time spent reworking servers? 15% is a rough estimate of how many move add changes have to be reworked, have to be redone. When you do all that math, you come up with 60 hours, half, and then 15% of that, 39 hours per month executing a move add change when it's related to servers. How do you reduce that? How can you get that, make that number more manageable? We're going to show you the entire process of doing that in just a second. But before we drill down into more details about on a tactical basis, I want to take a little look at something a little more larger scale, a little more strategic. Migrations and consolidations, time savings. I'm going to walk you through these 5 different graphics. But if you are implementing anything, doing any orchestration, merging, consolidating, enterprise software has to be there to help you. It's hard to do with spreadsheets. The term M&A is now part of our language, right? Mergers and acquisitions. My guess is the majority of the people on this call have gone through one or more merger or acquisition. What follows an acquisition? First you got to standardize, then consolidation. So to do the standardization and consolidation, let's start in the top left corner of this graphic, of this slide. So you start with your what-if planning. You got to identify what applications will be eliminated, what assets are associated with those applications that are no longer needed or duplicate. Then you start thinking about things like, can we migrate an entire business unit into a single rack, or maybe multiple racks in the same location? Is it wise to do that? We've had some people I've talked to that was their strategy, implemented DCIM, and they identified numerous issues, power-related, power concerns, specifically whenever they did an implementation like that. When you move out of your what-if planning stage, you start looking at execution. You can take your baseline spreadsheets, Visio diagrams, use bulk data manager tools, and do your auto allocate. You can implement them into the centralized database. So now that you've got your database populated, you start looking at true execution about going to the next step. And so bottom left, the third stage is you define the workflow. What steps are required to get you from server storage install to full production, and that becomes your workflow. It becomes repeatable, and by making it repeatable, you now feed it into the fourth diagram here, fourth graphic. You start issuing work orders. If you are being driven by work orders, like we say, it breeds efficiency. So it's a repeatable process. Say you have hundreds of servers that you need to implement during this consolidation acquisitions phase. By using these workflows, which feed work orders, you're now able to manage and bring online all of your assets. You eliminate the need for the spreadsheets. The spreadsheets, in fact, introduce some risks due to really lack of error checking. So the work order just makes everything run smoothly and efficiently. Next, you want to validate what you've done, what you have connected, that everything is correct. You start looking at reporting such as the fifth graphic in the bottom right. You start getting that graphical representation of your power environment, your communications, your connectivity between assets. This gives you this is the final step of working your way through the migration and consolidation projects. So that takes us took a little more of a strategic view. I want to drill down to a specific component that is very common in most data centers, and that's orphaned equipment. Some people would refer to them as ghosts. Even the most experienced data center managers and their staff prone to having 20 to 30% of their assets either be idle or underutilized. The way you address that, DCIM, you start with the audit. Once you have identified ghosts underutilized, you now, by having your data in, after completing the audit, now you have your data in the centralized database. It gives you the ability to truly manage and identify issues related to ghosts and or underutilized assets. When we start talking about reducing power demand, hopefully you're familiar with Moore's Law. Gordon Moore was the founder of Intel. Moore's Law states chip performance doubles every 2 years. With that, power demand decreases by up to 25% because your chips are now doing more with less effort and less energy required. So you've got your plans for tech refresh, you've got your asset life cycle that you're managing. You now can identify past generation equipment, older equipment that's eligible to be replaced. Whenever you execute on your tech refresh, you will see savings related to power, but also your whole environment becomes more efficient, and you can reclaim floor space. One of the drivers of doing a tech refresh, lease expiration and/or assets reaching full depreciation. So you need to know what your lease expiration dates are. You need to know when your assets will be fully depreciated. This way you start avoiding the costs associated with lease extensions, going to month with premiums, or having to worry about warranty expirations. DCIM helps to track all that information. You can build your reporting related to this, and that way you can coordinate the replacement prior to the needs. So DCIM works closely with your CMDB to ensure that you have a full view of all of your assets. want to show you a case study. It's a large-scale financial institution. You can see the numbers, but the goal of this case study, this project, was to shorten the time it takes to replace servers and storage in their environment. They project, they wanted to reduce it by 35%. So if you do the math under their scenario, 25,000 racks, 11 petabytes of storage, replace 15% per year, you're talking over 3,000 assets being replaced annually. Obviously, they have challenges with a project of this size. So they needed the details. They needed to be able to manage it. So asset, the age of the device, dependencies, what are you connected to, power requirements. So they utilized Enlight software to identify hard dollar savings and then also some of the benefits you receive on the soft side. But you can see the numbers: depreciation $2 million, maintenance $2.5, power and cooling, total savings of $6 million annually by executing this asset lifecycle management project. Some of the soft benefits are kind of interesting if you think about it. Reduce asset failure. Downtime has been reduced. Your assets are more current so you're recognizing cost savings, but at the same time, you're having a positive impact on your operations. Risk is a motivator. So majority of the people on the call, probably hands-on, you're involved with data center, you're doing some planning, you're involved with execution, and to see this chart, it might be a little bit painful. Downtime due to human error. 70% of downtime is tied directly to human error. Are you concerned with human error? Of course we are, because it's the way to address, one of the ways to address it is with automation. Your leadership set their goals. You now are driven to meet those goals. So many of these errors happen during your maintenance when you're doing move-add changes. How do you take advantage of your enterprise class tools to eliminate that human error? You implement workflows, you implement work order process, something we talked about a little more in depth previously. By implementing workflow and work orders, you've now set up the process, you've now implemented a process, and now you're seeing step by step how to execute the implementation of your assets. Risk management, audit, regulatory compliance, all critical components. Risk management, it's your goal to avoid failures through planning. And if a failure does occur, how do you reduce the mean time to repair? Get your system back up and running quicker, more efficiently. So it's tough to be compliant if you don't know what you have in your data center. So one way DCIM helps is with an audit. It's through process improvement. And let's take a look, starting left to right, the logical flow through your process. Starting on the left, we're going to verify, reconcile your assets using barcodes, using your spreadsheets, do an auto reconcile of your assets. So once you have your assets identified, reconcile it with your CMDB, and then so this reconciliation, you start identifying where entries can be variable. Depending on who entered the data into the spreadsheet. One person may use HP ProLiant, another one may just drop the HP, just call it ProLiant. Somebody may use the model number, ProLiant DL380. So could be the exact same asset listed 3 different ways. That's part of this auto reconciliation and verifying of the assets. After that's completed, you want to move into impact analysis. You want to mitigate the risks associated with your concerns about the assets and auto reconciling. So once you design and identify connectivity, you've now you're now able to show what is connected to what, where power is running, and any concerns you may have with your power. So now, once your database is up to date, you can now show what's connected. Real world, you will experience an outage. There will be a failure. You take advantage of your DCIM to identify where that problem is. You can identify it quickly, and also you can identify what it's connected to. Is it a mission critical application? So those are the steps that take you through risk, identifying risk, managing risk, getting ready for audit and regulatory compliance. Two people, two roles that are very concerned with risk, the CIO and the CFO. Here at Enlight, we've done preliminary research, contacted CIOs who we deal with on a regular basis, some of our customers and such. And they've identified 3 of their concerns. Also, this information comes out of CIO Magazine in addition to validate it. Number 1 care and concern, business agility. That's the ability to change and to do it quickly, and you're being driven by your processes. Strong processes is always a recurring theme you will hear. Business innovation, how do you do it better while being faster and cheaper? We've shown you examples of this as we've gone through the presentation. And then cultivating an IT business relationship. This IT to business relationship focuses basically getting the right input to the CIO. It's reporting basically. What reports can be generated? What do they need to see? Are we talking about system availability? Are we talking about power utilization reporting? That's the kind of IT to business relationship we're discussing. CFOs, their business decisions are based, for the data center, are based on financials. So they must have that detailed, sound financial information to drive their decision making. So whenever we talk about business performance, we're giving them the details that they need to drive their to meet their financial goals. Things like power consumption, cooling expenditures. We're managing the space. Also, one of the big ones that they would care about, ability to defer expenditures. You're now managing the total collection of assets. You're identifying opportunities to reduce your expenses. How do you defer expenditures related to your data center? And then last, a recurring theme we're hearing, internal controls, auditability. They want to know there's a chain of command in purchasing. They want to know about assets under management. And of course, they want to talk about OpEx versus CapEx. What can we move from capital expenditures into an operation expenditure? So, to tie it all together, we've looked at different ways to justify DCIM in your environment. Again, the cost savings, hard and soft cost savings ties directly to process improvement, improves your execution, elimination of rework. Hard costs, these are the real dollars. No ghosts, orphan servers, reduction in power consumption, managing the asset over its entire life cycle, eliminating the overlaps where you might have assets underutilized or even to the point of not being used but still being in the environment, still consuming electricity. So, in addition to soft costs, there's other tangible benefits. Reduction in risk due to human error. So mitigating risk, it is critical, and the way you do it is implementing a workflow, work orders through your DCIM. And then audit compliance. We keep circling back to this topic because it is critical, and DCIM can play a major role in assisting you through audit preparation. So, the last bullet, it it's an easy decision to get started with a SaaS deployment. When you start talking about deploying in the cloud, you want to have the ability to get full capabilities, but without an impact to your environment, but also realize the benefits associated with running in the cloud versus deploying the software in your environment. So, some key points about Nlight On Demand. It is a software as a service. It is manages the physical, the logical, virtual layers of your data center. It is a subscription service, so you get the benefit of a subscription where you're paying for the service. Maintenance is included as part of your subscription. And so you now have that full capability, so you're now optimizing your environment, power, space, cooling, and also the assets and how they're deployed. So I want to mention it's priced per rack. This gives you the flexibility. There are no hidden costs. There's no cost per square foot. Straightforward pricing for you. No additional hardware or software required. You need a browser. So think adding on to that, your total cost of ownership. No software licensing is required, no additional servers to run the perpetual license, and then the time, effort to implement your backup process and to include in your backup process, that is all managed and maintained by Nlight and our partner. So hourly transactional backups. So you add those total cost of ownership together, gives you a very strong reason and to help drive the justification for DCIM. Here's our contact information. In the U.S., it's myself, Mark Martino. You see my name and my email and my phone number. Best way to reach me. If you're in EMEA, Podrick Scully is my teammate. You see his contact information there. On the right-hand side, you see some links. You get an overview of all of the DCIM products that Nlight has. Then you can drill down software as a service, take a look at the various solutions we have. The bottom right ones should interest you, may interest you. You can get a trial of the Nlight software. You sign into our software as a service page, and then there will be a registration link for you on the right-hand side of that page. So what we've done, we've covered numerous topics related to justifying DCIM. Of course, we're going to have questions. One thing I want to mention, we're going to get through a short list of the questions. Any questions that are submitted, we will address back to you via email, in addition to the ones you're going to get the answers to now. Okay. On that note, Matt?
Okay, well, great job as usual. Mark, a lot of information you've covered there, but you didn't quite cover everything, so we do have a couple of questions here. So the first one is, observation was made that you didn't address power directly as a justification for DCIM. So I'm kind of so I suspect there's a rationale for that. Could you go into that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't focus on power, but it's an underlying message. It's more of a secondary item that ties directly to the ways that we can justify DCIM. If you start looking at doing your asset lifecycle management and replacing older equipment with newer generation, you're going to reap the benefits of that in your power consumption. You're going to see reduction in power. If you have identified and eliminated ghosts and orphan servers, that's an additional benefit. So no, I did not spend time detailing what that return may be, but it is directly associated with the other major components of justifying DCIM.
Okay, well that makes sense. So another area that you didn't necessarily mention on, and I think And I think, as a lot of users of Enlight, and I'm sure a lot of people considering a DCIM system, they use spreadsheets today. And I've talked to prospects and clients myself, and that they have a need to report out on the business. So, but I noticed you didn't touch on that explicitly. So could you talk about any time savings perceived, that a DCIM system could have in regards to reporting?
Oh, sure. So one of the things that is included in the Enlight On Demand or on-premise, we have a reporting package. It's 26 standard reports, dashboards available that have already been developed. So we've done our research, done our work, prepared them for you. If you truly think about the time consumption that goes into building a report, especially if you're starting with spreadsheets and trying to make them presentable from there, how about, I'm going to do some estimating. There's operational reports. You're starting to look at configurations. You're looking at power, looking at your asset life cycle. Hours per month, realistically, let's say 6 hours. Doing forecasting for your management, that's a big one. At 4 to 6 hours, we'll go lower end, just a rough estimate. Here's the one that I think, management dashboards. That's a favorite of our leadership. What kind of dashboards do they want to see? How long does it take to develop them? Let's say if you're building off of your previous reporting, I'm just going to go 4 hours. What if scenarios? This ties into your forecasting and also any planning you want to do. Just a couple of hours. So those are like 4 common reports that we are able to help and assist with. 16 hours was what I came up with. 10, 4, yep, 16 hours. Say it's a fully loaded man time, maybe $100 per hour, $1,600 a month. That's over $19,000 a year that you have man time dedicated to building reports on a monthly basis. So by taking advantage of the reports and dashboards, right there you have cost savings that you can identify. So.
Okay. Well, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Reporting on a system like spreadsheets definitely can take a while. You have to set it up. It could be reporting organizations for large data centers. So makes a lot of sense. Kind of as our final question, I'll give it as the capstone question. Is something that you definitely not alluded to, but you definitely mentioned that one slide on the case study. But could you talk a little bit more about ROI? Because I would think ROI would be a slightly more direct justification, and it certainly was part and parcel with the hard and soft costs. But what types of ROI do you see prospects using and that Enlight recommends?
That's a good question. I really didn't drill down into the ROI, but just wanted to tease it and let everyone know. We have multiple ROI models that we've developed, different scenarios that we can address with it. The big one, which was, again, talked about throughout this presentation, asset lifecycle management. We've identified how to efficiently manage the asset from installation through end of life, and how do you manage the renewals of it. So that's one of the ones that we get a lot of requests for. But then I spent time on consolidation, migration, mergers, and acquisitions. We have an ROI model for that. We've gone through it with the customer from end to end, validated data. We do know how to do it and how DCIM will assist it, and we can show that in another one of our models. A third one, kind of future looking, it's capacity planning. Are you doing your planning right? Do you know what the growth is, the what-if models? We have an example and a sample for capacity planning. If you're doing your capacity planning right, is there any way to avoid expenditures that you don't need? That's one of the critical components that you'll find. How do we defer the cost of acquiring new equipment, and as a major component of capacity planning? So those are 3 different models. Just want to mention, kind of talk about, and there are a few others that we could drill into outside of this call.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end it. Clearly, there's a lot of ways to justify DCIM, so I encourage those on the call to go and take some of the learnings and apply it internally. A lot of questions we did not get to that were slightly more product specific, we'd be happy to answer again, as Mark indicated, per email. As indicated at the top of the call, yes, these slides and the presentation will be available electronically, so we encourage you to either re-listen or re-look at, or ask your counterparts in your organization or colleagues to go ahead and register themselves, because we always like to make the presentations on demand. So with that, I'll thank everyone that's been on the call, and I'll thank Mark again for a great job presenting, and I wish everyone a great day. Thank you.